Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good night. Welcome to Borneo Constitutional Rights webinar number 4. So the title for our webinar tonight is Rebuttal on the Addiction to Pen called Malaya by Online Sarawak Post. This is some blogspot make some article on Sarawak rights and something about uh, what they don't agree with what happened in Malaysia. So this is a webinar on the constitutional rights of Sarawak and Sabah in the formation of Malaysia. Usually, I will make this webinar at 9 p.m. So we will start at 9 p.m. And my YouTube channel is Zulfaqar Saadi, the Constitutionalist. So time and over time, when I have the time, it's a bit busy right now because there is no more PKP. Office work is starting, so every now and then I will make a webinar as many times as possible when I have the available time to do so. So let's start here. Okay, this is the blogspot online Sarawak post. It was made on March 4 by Detective Donna. I don't know that is his name or her name. The addiction to paint called Malaya. So he makes some writing there about what he agree and what he is not agree about the formation of Malaysia and Malaysia agreement and the Sarawak rights, something like that. But it's interesting that people keep writing about Sarawak rights. Either they know about it or they try. So it's okay that they keep writing about many things about the constitution, Sarawak rights, what is the have been agreed in Malaysia Agreement 1963. But the rebuttal here is not that I will criticize, but maybe what I will tell is more specific and will help the writer and the audience so that they can easily understand what is right and what is wrong with this article, because some of the article is misleading people and it sometimes can make it can be confusing for some people to understand Malaysia Agreement 1963 and our rights because of a lot of misleading article out there. They make it in the blogspot or in Facebook or something like that. But I like to review. Yeah, so when I review, I will point out some of the documents, section in Malaysia Agreement 1963 or from paragraph in the IGC report or article in the Federal Constitution. I will give us specific information. So this is the article for tonight. You can check it online and see what he is writing about. So let's first look. This is the first sentence that he said. He said about there is nothing wrong with working with UMNO or other parties. Even the AP is harboring the even the AP harboring the idea of working with other parties to replace Muhyiddin administration. This is some quote by Datuk Sri Alexander Nantalinggi, Secretary General of GPS and PBB. But I don't know if the quote is right or not, but there is some link from Borneo Post. So the writer makes something about GPS relationship with UMNO and Malaya, something like that. But yeah, you can criticize. It's a freedom of speech and association. Datuk Sri Alexander Nantalinggi can have his opinion. The writer also can have his own opinion. Because in Article 10 of Federal Constitution, with the heading Freedom of Speech, Assembly and Association, Clause 1 of Article 10, 1A, it said, every citizen has the right to freedom of speech and expression. And Clause 1C said all citizens have the right to form association. So either PBB or GPS want to have relationship with UMNO, with PN or whatever, it is under Article 10. It's a freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of association. Wherever you want to associate with in Malaysia, you have that right. It's up to you. As long as you have this adult suffrage, you must have adult suffrage. In democratic principle, adult suffrage is you know that about what happening in politics. That is the minimum criteria to be able to be in politics. You must have reached this adult suffrage. So it's freedom of speech. Whatever they are saying, BN or whatever GPS want to have relationship with whoever, it doesn't matter. It's freedom of speech. And and then we look at what he said, the one that I marked with the red box there. In the article, it said Tun Jugah said about Sarawak joining the Federated States of Malaya, North Borneo, Sabah, and Singapore to form Malaysia in early days of 1962. You know, this kind of statement, it is misleading for people who are learning about Malaysia Agreement 1963. Okay, first it said uh, Sarawak joining. First, when in 1962, Malaysia was formed on 16 September 1963. He said in 1962. In 1962, it is not Sarawak. It's supposed to be the colonies of Sarawak. That is our status. We are the colonies of Sarawak in 1962. And the second point is the colonies of Sarawak is not joining the formation of Malaysia. We are federated with the Federation of Malaya, Singapore, and North Borneo. So the colonies of Sarawak federated, not joining. We are not joining anything. We federated. The terms in Article 1 of Malaysia Agreement 1963 is very specific. We are federated with the existing states of the federation, which is Federation of Malaya. And then the point number 3 is, in the article, it said Federated States of Malaya. There is no such thing as Federated States of Malaya. It doesn't exist. They're just writing like suka-suka all this stuff. Federated States of Malaya. What is that? I don't find any article or constitutional documents that said Federated States of Malaya. It doesn't exist. Don't make up all these terms. It will be confusing for other people out there. So the right term is states of the federation. If you look at Article 1 of Malaysia Agreement 1963, the colonies of Sarawak, North Borneo, and the state of Singapore federated with the existing states of the federation. What is the states of the federation? If you look at Act 388, which is a interpretation ordinance by the Federation of Malaya Interpretation Ordinance. States of the Federation is Federation of Malaya 1957. So we are the colonies of Sarawak and North Borneo and the state of Singapore federated with the existing states of the federation. So the right terms is states of the federation. So it was given in the Interpretation and General Clause Ordinance 1948. And then, to easily understand the right terms here, that the author of this blogspot should take notice, you look at Article 1 of Malaysia Agreement 1963. Article 1 of Malaysia Agreement will explain what is Malaysia, what is the name of the federation, what is the federation after all these colonies and states federated, it become what kind of federation? It's called Malaysia. So the whole sentence is for Article 1 of Malaysia Agreement 1963. It said the colonies of North Borneo and Sarawak and the state of Singapore shall be federated, not joining. We are not joining. shall be federated with the existing states of the Federation of Malaya, states of the Federation of Malaya, as the states of Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore. So we are from colonies, not Borneo and Sarawak. After we federated with the state of the Federation of Malaya, we become states of Sabah and Sarawak. We automatically not become colonies anymore after we form Malaysia. So our status changed. That is one of the information here in Article 1. And it met in accordance with the constitutional instrument annexed to this agreement, which is Annex A, which have 96 pages, Annex A. All the constitutional instrument is written there. 90, 96 section. I think, yeah, it is 96 section. How many pages? I can't remember. 177. And the federation shall thereafter be called Malaysia. Okay, after this colonies of North Borneo and Sarawak and state of Singapore federated with the states of the Federation of Malaya, and then we become a new federation, which is what we call Malaysia. That new federation is Malaysia. We're not joining Malaya and become state of Malaya. No, we doesn't agree to become one of the state of Malaya. We agree to federated with Malaya and form new federation called Malaysia. Okay. Second, he said about Tun Jugah, Tun Datuk Patinggi Temenggong Jugah anak Barieng. This is some statement here. It said he was recorded in the blogspot. It said he was recorded to have said Anang bakar tebu manis bar pun tang tabar ba ujung. I don't know what. Is this the right terms or not? I don't think that is the right terms in the blogspot. And in English means do not be like the sugar cane, sweet at the beginning but tasteless at the end. Yeah, something like that. But I think the right term is what Temenggong juga said is Anang Malaysia bakar tebu, manis di pun tabar di ujung. Jangan Malaysia seperti tebu, manis di pangkal, tawar di hujung. Maksudnya lebih kurang jangan mula-mula I said in English, okay, it's better. So Malaysia in the beginning it will be sweet like a sugar cane, but in the end it will be tasteless. It is a warning by Temenggong juga, which is happening today. Now there is no sweet in Malaysia. Everybody doesn't agree with what happened. We agree with Malaysia Agreement. Remember, we agree with Malaysia Agreement 1963, but we don't agree with the breach of Malaysia Agreement 1963. That is a big difference. We don't agree with the breach of Malaysia Agreement 1963. And then Temenggong juga also one of the signatories for Malaysia Agreement 1963 and IGC report. So you can see his name is there for Sarawak. One of the signatories for Malaysia Agreement 1963 and IGC report. That is Temenggong juga, our forefather for Malaysia. All of these signatories is the forefather for Malaysia. Not just Tunku Abdul Rahman, Temenggong juga also a forefather of Malaysia, the forefather of Sarawak. And I want to bring another statement by Mr. Ong Ki Hui during the Council Negeri meetings in September 1962. Council Negeri is a state legislative assembly of Sarawak, now called State Legislative Assembly. But in the beginning, it was called Council Negeri. So Council Negeri, Ong Ki Hui make also very interesting warning. He make a statement. It said, in doing what we did, my colleagues and I are of course sticking our necks out and probably causing troubles for ourselves in the days to come. when they go to the Malaysia Solidarity Consultative Committee, something like that, and all the discussion with the formation of Malaysia, he know that Ong Ki Hui and his friend are sticking their necks, and they might cause trouble for the people in the future. But it is not of ourselves that we think, but of our children and of our children children. Ong Ki Hui and his friend are already thinking about, they not think about themselves when they discuss about formation of Malaysia. They think about us today, their children and their children, because they, with all the capability that they have at that time, they try their best to protect Sarawak in Council Negeri. When they make a motion in Council Negeri in September 1962, they want to make a motion in principle to support Malaysia. So very ardent discussion in the Council Negeri at that time. So they make a warning, something like this. So they try their best, and they don't think about themselves, they think about us in the future. And then he continued to say, my honorable friend and colleagues opposite, who was Sarawak leaders to the Malaysia Solidarity Consultative Committee, MSCC, meetings expressed the fear that we would have our grave dug up and our bonds desecrated by them if we should fail in the trust they have given us. Now he make a warning that their grave might be dug up by us because they failed to protect Sarawak at that time. They, Ong Pi Hui and his friend are already very afraid that the people in the future, might dug up their grave, because what they do today at that time might fail in the interest of Sarawak. And then he said, as one who believes in some heaven or hell in the hereafter, I fear more meetings my forebears who have lived in this happy land before me. They're not just afraid for the people in the future, but after they passing from this world, they're afraid about the people in the past, their forefathers that have lived happily in Sarawak. Let not they point, and then he said this one, let not they point an accusing finger at me for having, like Judas, sold Sarawak for 30 pieces of silver. So they make out, he said, hopefully the people in the future and the people in the past will not point out at them that they are selling Sarawak when they agree in principle to form Malaysia. Something like that. They try their best to protect Sarawak, but they still give their warning. Hopefully they are doing their best. And they are doing their best with the British, with the help of the British at that time. And then we back to the blog spot, what they said. I'm sorry, I need to close the window first. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, no sound, no disturbance. Now we look at the blog spot. It said, it's continued to say, the journey of pen has been long one, 57 long years to be exact. It started on the 16th September 1963. From that date until this very day, it has been one long litany of betrayal and discrimination against Sarawak. So what is the discrimination against Sarawak? You see a lot of people out there, they just accuse. They said this is not good for Sarawak, this is discrimination, this is uh, this is not right. But what is not right? What is discrimination? You must be very specific. You must tell what has been discriminated against Sarawak. So I give you one example. What has discrimination that have happened to Sarawak and Sabah? We look at IGC report. Look at the real documents Look at Malaysia Agreement, look at IGC report, look at federal constitution, look at state constitution. We have our own state constitution. Use it and look at it. What have been breached? So here I give an example: discrimination against Sarawak. I will not just talk discrimination. I will prove it. You look at IGC report Annex A, which is legislative list, administrative arrangement, and assurance. Also, Annex A is the rights of Sarawak is written in Annex A, and then later all these rights is inserted in the federal constitution in the ninth schedule. But the condition was not written in the ninth schedule. But I will tell you what is the discrimination happen if you look at the IGC report. We look at item 9A2, which is under the state list. Ports and harbors not so declared. One of the discrimination that happened, okay, I start with the rights of Sarawak on ports and harbors. It said it is under state list. Port and harbor not so declared in Sabah and Sarawak, it is under state list. Bintulu Port supposed to be under state list. It was taken by federal. Port in Kuching, port in Sandakan, port in Kota Kinabalu. It is all under state list. And the condition was given there to empower all these our rights on port and harbor. The condition is the federal government will not interfere with the present policy which aims at administration of ports by port authorities. In respect of port fees and dues, discrimination should not be introduced designed to divert shipping from current trade routes. So what happened today is all the shipping that come from Taiwan, from Japan, from Korea, all has been diverted to Port Klang in Selangor, Tanjung Pelepas. This is not supposed to be happen because our trade routes cannot be discriminated. It's the words is specific there, no discrimination. So what happened is our goods, all the stuff that we buy in Sabah and Sarawak become more expensive compared to Federation of Malaya, because all trade routes have been diverted, and all this diversion that was made by the federal government is discrimination. It discriminates Sabah and Sarawak. So I can prove you that is the discrimination on our rights in item 9A2 of state list in the Annex A. You can find also the similar item in the 9th schedule of the federal constitution. So I give you that information. Now slavery. We look at Article 6 of Federal Constitution. It is the same with discrimination just now. One of the interesting quotes about discrimination and slavery. When we talk about discrimination, it is always have a relationship with slavery. Discrimination is the fool that powers slavery. You know, it caused slavery. If there is any discrimination in Sabah and Sarawak or any parts of Malaysia or in the Federation of Malaya, if there is discrimination, we are leading to slavery. That is what happened. All the port trade routes, shipping routes have been diverted to Port Klang. Instead, it's supposed to go to directly to Sabah and Sarawak, but it's divert to Port Klang first and then sent to Sabah and Sarawak. That is discrimination, and discrimination will lead to slavery. You know what slavery in Federal Constitution? In Federal Constitution, you look at Article 6 of Federal Constitution. Article 6, Clause 1, it said, no person shall be held in slavery. So we are not supposed to be a slave. There's not supposed to be a discrimination against Sabah and Sarawak. No slavery. Federal government rectify this mistake. They cannot divert the shipping route, all go to Port Klang. Cannot. They cannot do that one. That is discrimination, and it will lead to slavery, and no person shall be held in slavery according to federal constitution. And then the block spot, the in the red bracket there, I written there, I take a sentence in the block spot. It said, Malaysia was formed on the understanding that it will be a partner of equal status to the Federated Malay State, not Borneo and Singapore. There is no such thing as Federated Malay States. What is this Federated Malay State, aka Malaya? In the previous seminar, I already tell everybody, there is a different term for states of the Federation, states of Malaya, Malaya, Federation of Malaya, Federation of Malaysia. It is all different terms. You must use it properly. So Federated Malay State, I don't know what is this blogspot are saying. It doesn't exist. What I want to emphasize here actually is the equal status. How many understand what is equal status when we form Malaysia? To understand what is equal status in the formation of Malaysia, we look at UN report, United Nations Malaysia Mission Report, final conclusion of the Secretary General, dated 14 September 1963. 2 days before formation of Malaysia, there is a report by UTAN, Secretary General of United Nations at that time. After they make a survey, commission, something like that in Sabah and Sarawak, and then they make a report, mission report for Malaysia. So what he said is, we are focused on the equal status so that we can understand what it said about equal status here. So what Yutan said is, I was asked to ascertain the wishes of the people within the context of General Assembly Resolution 1541, Principle 9 of the Annex, by a fresh approach. So Yutan said, Malaysia, when he approached the formation of Malaysia and make the mission to Sabah and Sarawak, they approached it based on Resolution 1541 of United Nations. This is one of the principles for decolonization. So we look at Resolution 1541 lah. That don't need to go anywhere else. When we look at UN Resolution 1541, one of the principle, they have, I think, 9 principles. There's several principles there. It's not much, several principles only. We look at Principle 8 of the UN Resolution 1541. What it said is integration. You know, when we federated with the Federation of Malaya, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore federated with Federation of Malaya, the form of the federation is integration. There is many type of federation, remember. There is no such thing as only one type of federation. When many countries in Africa, in Caribbean, in Malaysia, what kind of federation is it? It's different. In Malaysia, the federation is integration. Principle 8. Integration with an independent state. So Sabah and Sarawak are colonies. We federated with independent state, which is Malaya, Federation of Malaya, through integration. That is the word, integration. So integration with an independent state should be on the basis of complete equality. So when we federated with the Federation of Malaya, Sabah, Sarawak, Singapore, and Malaya, we are on the status of complete equality after we federated. Very, very clear here. If we federated in the form of integration under UN Resolution 1541, we are equal, completely equal. We on the basis of complete equality between the peoples of elsewhere non-self-governing territory and those of the independent country. Because when we formed Malaysia in 1963, Sabah and Sarawak is still colony. Singapore is self-government country, and Malaya is already independent. It doesn't matter what the status. It's not status. It's the degree of your decolonization process. There is certain degree, certain stages when we go on decolonization process. It doesn't matter which stage are you in the decolonization process. Either you are still colony or you are self-government, and Malaya is already independent. When we integrate through federated through integration, we are completely equal. That is what it's mean here. After we federated, we are completely equal. We must be treated equally. The peoples of both territories should have equal status and rights of citizenship and equal guarantees of fundamental rights and freedoms without any distinction or discrimination. So all of equal status, rights of citizenship, guarantees of fundamental rights and freedom, it is all already in the federal constitution. Both should have equal rights and opportunities for representation and effective participation at all levels in the executive, legislative, and judicial organs of the government. That means if you from Sabah and Sarawak, you should have the opportunities to have a representation in the federal parliament, in Dewan Rakyat, in the executive. There should be a representative from Sabah and Sarawak in the cabinet, in the executive. Always, because we are from Malaysia under UN Resolution 1541, under Principle Act. Sabah and Sarawak must always be represented in the cabinet and in the parliament and in the judicial organs of government. Okay, and then the block spot, it said power sharing in the Malaysian parliament. It said Malaysia was formed, this is what the block spot are saying. Malaysia was formed on the understanding that it will be a partner of equal status. And then it said, but the Parliament of Malaysia in 1963, not in 1964, in 1963. Parliament of Malaysia, when we first formed Malaysia, we have 159 seats of parliament. Sarawak was given 24, Sabah 16, Singapore 15, and Malaya have 104. But the block spot, it's argued that based strictly on the principle of equal partnership, Sarawak should have at least 39 seats. You know, this person, when he calculate from 159 seats at the time, 159 seats in federal parliament, and then we have 4 partner. So divide by 4. So every partner will have 39 seats. So Malaya will have 39 seats, Sabah will have 39, Singapore 39, and Sarawak 39 seats. That is not how we calculate how many representatives in the parliament. You don't calculate it something like that. Nobody calculate representation in the parliament like that. 4 partner, so divide by 4. Nobody do like that. You will be a laughing stock in the world if you do something like that. You know, when we make a representation in the federal parliament, usually people do it based on the proportionate representation. That is the word, proportionate representation, based on the ratio, nisbah populasi, based on the ratio of the population of your state. Not divide by 4, but you must divide by your population. How many population you have? That is how many you can represent in the federal parliament. That is how you basically how you calculate how many representative you can have in the Dewan Rakyat. But when we form Malaysia, we understand there is some issue with the how to calculate the representation in the parliament. So we bargain, we make agreement, we make a negotiation in the Malaysia Agreement 1963. When we form Malaysia, we make a negotiation, give and take. So you have more seat, we have less seat, less parliament seat. Why? So what do we have in return? Something like that. And we need to tackle the issue of Sabah and Sarawak, the particular issue of Sabah and Sarawak, which was being brought in the Cobalt Commission at the time about the representation of in the federal parliament. This is a big issue when Malaysia was formed for Sabah and Sarawak. We want to ensure that Sabah and Sarawak have a good representation in the federal parliament. It was discussed in the Cobalt Commission, discussed in the London Agreement, in the London meeting 3 times, London London meeting 1, 2, 3, and then it was discussed in the IGC committee, IGC, and then it was make it into the Malaysia agreement and then put it into the federal constitution. So this is a big issue at the time. So what Sabah and Sarawak wants at that time and has been agreed on how to calculate the number of the representation in the federal parliament is that you look at the wording number 2 down there that I write. The representation should take account of size as well as in the federal population. So when in case of Sabah and Sarawak, we cannot just look at the ratio of the population. We must look at the size of Sabah and Sarawak also and its potential. So that is how we calculate how many can represent Sabah and Sarawak in the federal parliament. You don't make 222 seats and then divide by 4. Nobody do something like that. It's stupid. Nobody do calculation something like that for federal parliament. Representation. How many people you represent in the parliament based on the ratio of the population at your place. That is the basic first. And then we make a caveat there when we form the Federation of Malaysia. It also has been agreed. Federation of Malaya agree with what we want, which is the representation of Sabah and Sarawak take account of the population in Sabah and Sarawak, and they also must take account of the size of Sabah and Sarawak. So the calculation is different there. But for Malaya, they use a proportionate representation based on the population in certain place. So they make a delineation of the parliament seats. But in Sabah and Sarawak, you look at population and you look at the size of the area also. Okay, we look at in the beginning. In Malaysia Agreement 1963, we look at Annex A, Section 9 of the Malaysia Agreement 1963 on the representation in the federal parliament. It is about the composition of House of Representatives. And you can look at the Federal Constitution, Article 46 on this rights, on the representation in the House of Parliament in the Dewan Rakyat. So in the beginning, this is in 1963. In the beginning, Malaya have Federation of Malaya have 104 seats. Singapore 15. Sarawak 24. And North Borneo, now Sabah, 16. So when they make a calculation and they make a negotiation for the formation of Malaysia, taking account of the agreed term and the give and take, the bargain, everything. So Malaya, they have 104, which is made the federal seat in Federation of Malaya. It was calculated based on the proportionate representation, so based on the population. But in Singapore, only given 15 seats. You know, Singapore have a very big population. But only given 15 seats. The calculation for Singapore is less than proportionate representation. Why? Why Singapore have only 15 seats, even though they have a very big population compared to Sabah and Sarawak in Malaya? Because Singapore, they retain a lot of responsibility on education, on labor. So they have a lot of tax. They have a lot of money. So when they make a negotiation when the formation of Malaysia, because they have a lot of power on this other stuff on labor, on taxation. They retain that power, but once they negotiate that one, I have more power, but I will have less representation in parliament. So there is a negotiation. And for Sabah and Sarawak, representation should take account of size as well as in the federal population. So when we take account of the size and the population, Sarawak was given 24 seats and Sabah was given 16. But actually, we cannot have this much seat actually. If we look at the ratio of the population of Sabah and Sarawak, Sarawak actually only, I don't know, maybe 15, something like that. Sabah maybe 8, 9, something like that, if you calculate based on the ratio of population only. But because we take account of the size of Sabah and Sarawak, we have more seat, 24 for Sarawak and 16 for Sabah. But because we are given more seat, we delegate a lot of our power to federal government also, and our taxation to federal government. So there is a negotiation. We have more seat, but in return we give we delegate. We not give we delegate the power to federal government on certain a lot of taxation power to federal government and legislative right. You look at Annex A. It was all listed in the Annex A. So if we calculate here, if we calculate here, Sabah, maybe I will go to that one later. When we combine together Singapore, Sarawak, and North Borneo, we have a one-third majority in parliament, which can deny any amendment of federal constitution. We have veto power there. That is also the terms when we calculate the representation in the federal parliament. We want to have a veto power. Now we look at the IGC report. This is the rights of Sabah and Sarawak was report on representation in the federal parliament was written in IGC report in paragraph 19, clause 2 of the IGC report. This is our rights on representation in parliament. Use this one, paragraph 19, 2. What it said is that basically the proportion, not the number, the proportion that the number of seats allocated respectively to Sarawak and to North Borneo bears to the total number of seats in the House and should not be reduced. You know, the proportion, not the number, not the number of seats, the proportion of seat of Sabah and Sarawak cannot be reduced. If you reduce, you breach IGC report and Malaysia Agreement 1963. So our seats cannot be reduced. The proportion must remain the same. This proportion. So how to calculate this proportion? This is how you calculate the proportion of number of seats for Sabah and Sarawak in Dewan Rakyat. You know, Federation of Malaya, they have 65.4%. Singapore have 9.4%, Sarawak 15.1%, North Borneo 10.1%. Combined together, Singapore, Sarawak, and North Borneo, Sabah, we have 34.6%, which is one-third of the parliament seat. It's a veto power, so that if there is any breach, if amendment on federal constitution cannot be done easily. It need two-third majority. So we have veto power on one-third majority there. We can deny any amendment of federal constitution between Singapore, Sarawak, and North Borneo. So this is the proportion that we must safeguard for Sabah and Sarawak. Sarawak, we have 15.1% number of representative in Dewan Rakyat. 15.1%. And North Borneo, Sabah have 10.1%. That is the proportion of representative of Sabah and Sarawak in the federal parliament that we must safeguard. Not the number of seats, proportion. So this is in 1963. Now, this is what happened in 2021. When we recalculate again the proportion of the seat for Sabah and Sarawak, you see in 2021, Malaya have 74.8%. Sarawak have 13.9%. And North Borneo, Sabah have 11.3%. And combined together, we have lost the veto power, one third of the parliament power to deny any amendment of federal constitution. That is another breach, but we want to look at the proportion here. When we look the proportion between 1963 and 2021, we see that the proportion of for Sarawak from 15.1% has been reduced to 13.9%. And Sabah from 10.1%, but it increased to 11.3%. So Sarawak here, we have lost our rights on the proportion of the number of representatives in the parliament. So this is in breach of paragraph 19.3 on the representation of the in the parliament. We lost one third majority also here. So two breach. We lost the proportion and one third majority in parliament. So they breach IGC report there. Very specific paragraph 19.2 just now I said here. This one, paragraph 19.2 of the IGC report, the number of parliament has breached that one, has breached that paragraph in the IGC report. So as we can see here, the proportion that the number seat allocated respectively to Sarawak and North Borneo should not be reduced, but it has been reduced. So our rights has been breached lah. We need more representation in parliament because we cannot just calculate bagi empat, no, something like that. We calculate based on the proportionate representation and the taking account of the population in the area and the size of Sabah and Sarawak. So our proportion cannot be reduced. It must be increased. And then the blog spot is talking about the constitutional crisis of Chief Minister of first Chief Minister of Sarawak, which is Stephen Kalongnikan. It's talking about what happened to Stephen Kalongnikan in 1965 and 1966, where there is a constitutional crisis in Sarawak at that time. But I have explained it in my previous YouTube. You can refer this one to my previous YouTube, how the federal government have toppled our first Chief Minister of Sarawak. You can check my 13 May 1969 tragedy. This is what happened in Borneo. The YouTube there. I have put it also in the CIA document reveals the true intention of Malaysia formation. So you can check two of this my YouTube previous YouTube video about how and why first Chief Minister of Sarawak has been toppled. It is all about money. Follow the money. You will find the reason why. You can watch that video in my YouTube channel. And then the blog spot are talking about the PDA 74. It said PDA is the bedrock of Malaysia oil and gas landscape, and it created Malaysia only Fortune 500 company for Sarawakian 1st October 1974. However, marked the first day Malaya-led and UMNO-driven federal government legally stole Sarawak rights over her own resource. Yeah, it's true. They make a constitutional. They use emergency power to steal to take over. The right word is to take over our territorial waters and oil and gas that comes with it. Sarawak entire oil and gas resource was nationalized via PDA 74. PDA is not to nationalize oil and gas. PDA is to transfer the management of territorial waters from federal government to a company called Petronas. It is to transfer the responsibility to manage oil and gas. That is the PDA. It's not to nationalize or something like that. And then yeah, something like that. It said PDA. Actually, they make a mistake there in the blog. So first October 1974. It's not first October 1964. First October 1964 is the Act or amendment law for this PDA 1974. Actually, it's the date for amendment in 1975. Maybe they are talking about the signing of the Petroleum Development Act in 1974. You know, when Tun Abdul Rahman Yaakob, Chief Minister of Sarawak at the time, it signed the PDA. Actually, the PDA is not the reason federal government take over Sabah and Sarawak resources, territorial waters. This signing of PDA is actually only a guise, only to blind the people. Oh, your government give the oil and gas to federal government. No, our territorial water was taken by using EO number 7, Emergency Ordinance number 7, by using emergency power. That's how federal government take over territorial water and oil and gas of Sabah and Sarawak. They use emergency power. You look at Emergency Ordinance number 7. They use that one, not this PDA signing. No, it is just to fool the people to think that their own people sell Sarawak. No, this is just how to make you know make you know to make a fool of the people, to make you think that your own people sell Sarawak. No, it is this signing is invalid. There is no seal of the dun there. There is no seal of the dun. Chief Minister cannot just sign and give away the territories of Sarawak. No, cannot do like that. There is a procedure that you must follow. You must bring it to the dune, get the job of the dune, something like that. You cannot just sign away something like that. It's funny. It's funny how people believe this kind of stuff. So it is the political strategy by the Federation of Malaya to fool the people in Sabah and Sarawak into thinking that their own people, their own leader sell Sarawak. But actually, they already take territorial water and oil and gas of Sabah and Sarawak by using emergency ordinance. They take it by using emergency ordinance number 7. Okay. Now the blog spot talk about the Territorial Sea Acts of 2012. Yes, TSA is actually unconstitutional. TSA don't have emergency power. Only Agong have emergency power. And then you see Act of Parliament. Act of Parliament was passed by the Parliament. Parliament don't have emergency power. Only Yang di-Pertuan Agong have emergency power. So this act actually is unconstitutional. You cannot change or take over other people's territories just like that, just passing the act in Parliament. You cannot. You must get the consent of Sabah and Sarawak first. And then you must take the consent from the Conference of Ruler, and then pass in the Parliament, and then get the royal assent from the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. After that, you can take other people's territories. Other than that, you cannot take. So TSA is unconstitutional. They just pass in Parliament. It breached a lot of stuff, a lot of states' right, a lot of order in council, lands right of Sabah and Sarawak. It is unconstitutional. See, I make here and give a note here. When EO number 7 has been lifted in 2012, in 2012, when Prime Minister Najib Razak lifted the emergency power, all the territorial water that they have take automatically revert back to Sabah and Sarawak. So all the territorial water is belong to Sabah and Sarawak. It not belong to Petronas. I don't know what Petronas are doing there. What operation are they doing on our territorial water, on our land? What they are doing? Because all this territorial water revert back to us automatically. Ada wunding-wunding when they take over our territorial water. No discussion, no negotiation. So when it was lifted, no need negotiate, no need discussion. Automatically revert back to Sabah and Sarawak. Now, And then still the same sentence there. He said the blogspot said the downgrading of Sarawak status from territory to state in 1976. This is confusing statement. Sarawak status, but the right terms is constitutional position of Sabah and Sarawak, not the status. No, the right terms is constitutional position of Sabah and Sarawak in the formation of Malaysia in Article 1. So, Sarawak position has been changed from one of the component unit of the Borneo states to one of the component unit of the Federation of Malaya. If we look at the current Article 1 of the Federal Constitution, you see Sabah and Sarawak have been grouped together under Clause 2 of the Article 1. So we become 13, 12 and 13 state of the Federation. You know, states of the Federation means Federation of Malaya. If we look at the interpretation Ordinance 1948, states of the Federation, the interpretation is Federation of Malaya. Now they put Sabah and Sarawak as one of the states of the Federation of Malaya. So our status in 1976, our constitutional position has been changed from one of the component unit of Borneo State to one of the component unit of the Federation of Malaya. Effectively, because our position have been changed from Borneo State to one of the state of Malaya, our territories also has become territories of the Federation of Malaya. They just take over all our territories just like that in Article 1. This is all wrong. I show it to you. Why it's wrong? We look at Article 161E, Clause 1, and Article 159.3 and 4BB of Federal Constitution. You see in Article 1, if we read Article 159 and 161E of the Federal Constitution, the heading is already set, very clear. Safeguard for constitutional position of state of Sabah and Sarawak. Safeguard for constitutional position, not status, not partnership. Constitutional position of the state of Sabah and Sarawak, of the Borneo state. It was written in Article 161E and Article 159.3 and 4BB. So here it said constitutional position of Sabah and Sarawak can only be equate or assimilate to the position of the states of Malaya. It said you cannot downgrade it. You can only upgrade, equate, or upgrade position of Sabah and Sarawak. You can equate Borneo state equal to state of Malaya, or you can equate Sarawak equate to state of Malaya, or equate Sabah equal to state of Malaya. That is the only thing you can do to change Article 1. You cannot downgrade. You must assimilate or upgrade position of Sabah and Sarawak. So Article 1 amendment in 1976 is in breach of Article 161E and Article 159. Very specific. You cannot just say, oh, Article 1 breach Malaysia Agreement. So how it breach? This is how it breach Article 1. It breached Article 161E and Article 159 of Federal Constitution itself. You see, our parliament, 222 parliamentary, swear to protect Federal Constitution, but they breach what they swear to protect. You ask them. And then, okay, I try to explain this one. How to solve Article 1 of the Federal Constitution. It is actually written in IGC report, paragraph 32, subparagraph 2 of the under constitutional safeguards of Sabah and Sarawak. This is how you can, the procedure, the constitutional procedure to amend Article 1. You cannot just two-third majority in Parliament under Article 159. No, you cannot just do something like that. For this particular case, you must make special constitutional arrangement. Very specific. The words in IGC report is already written there. the British already predict that this will happen, so they make this protection, this constitutional mechanism on how to protect Sabah and Sarawak. So, how to amend Article 1 of Federal Constitution? You activate paragraph 32 of IGC report by using special constitutional arrangements. How to do this one? Okay, you read this one. I summarize it here. Easy for everybody to understand. To do a special constitutional arrangement to amend Article 1 so that it become good again, not what happened today. First, you must get a consent of state government. First, get a consent from state government. So, state government make a meeting in Council Negeri or in Legislative Assembly. You must discuss it in Dun and give your consent to change Article 1 of Federal Constitution. What do you want to change in Article 1? You not discuss this in Parliament. You discuss it in Dun first, in Dewan Undangan Negeri. You discuss it in Dun Sabah and Dun Sarawak. You get the consent. In the consent, maybe you want the wording will change to Borneo State again, or you want Sabah and Sarawak as different state. It also can be done. So give your consent. What kind of consent you want to give? And when you give a consent, you bring it to Parliament. And then Parliament will discuss this one in Parliament. And to amend Article 1, you don't need two-third majority. You just need simple majority. If you read this paragraph 30 clause 2 of the IGC report, by using this simple constitutional arrangement. After you get the Dun permission, Dun consent, you get the simple majority in Parliament. Because you make a mistake last time, you used two-third majority to amend Article 1, just to revert it back to the original, you use simple majority in Parliament. You see, it's very simple. You just need simple majority to revert your mistake. And all this consent and simple majority and the modification of Article 1 can only be done for two things, which is to equate Borneo State with the Federation of Malaya, back to original, or to equate a Borneo State, Sabah or Sarawak, to the position of the state of the Federation or Federation of Malaya. Okay, we have two options. Either we want Borneo states revert back to original wording, or we want each of the state of Sabah and Sarawak as a different state compared with the Federation of Malaya. So we can only be equate with the Federation of Malaya. Sabah and Sarawak can only be equate with Sabah, with the Federation of Malaya. We cannot be downgrade. So Article 1, this is this is the constitutional procedure to get the Article 1 amended. First, get the consent from your Dun. Don't ask Parliament. Why are you ask Parliament? Get the consent from Dun first. We see all this previous attempt to amend federal constitution, it's wrong. You do it in the wrong way. I can tell you. It's very specific in paragraph 32. You must use special constitutional arrangement. Okay, now in the blogspot, it said that Malaya-based plantation company like Felda, Felcra, Sam Darby, Bootstate, Tabung Haji, IOI, Tradewinds is all in Sabah and Sarawak. You don't complain about this plantation come to Malaya plantation come to Sarawak, to federal government or Malaya. Don't complain with them. Land is under state list. Complain to state government. Because land is under state list. Land is under jurisdiction of state government. If something like this happen, you ask our Dun, you ask our Adun. Don't ask our MP. Don't ask MP about all this interference, all this plantation for Malaya, Federation of Malaya come to Sabah and Sarawak. Don't ask your MP. Ask your Adun. You know, MP work for Parliament. Adun work for state government. Land is under state government. So you ask your Adun. You look at the 9th schedule in IGC report Annex A, it is land is under state list. Anything about land, ask state government, ask your adun. Don't ask your MP. Your MP work for parliament. It's not work for Sabah and Sarawak. Okay, and then education. It talks about there is a discriminatory quotas for intake into public university and teachers training institute in Sabah and Sarawak. Actually, for these rights on education, I have make some very long. I have listed all the safeguard for education in Sabah and Sarawak as spelled out in the IGC report. Maybe I can show you what I have writing before on this one. Wait for it. Okay, here. Oh, no, no, not this one. Uh, mm, no, stop screen. Screen and up. Okay, this is it. I have actually it's 6 pages actually. I give it to one of the YB actually to check this one. The YB asked for this information, so I give it to YB. Yeah. So I just go to here. You look at the rights of Sabah and Sarawak in. I have listed here from 1 until 13. A lot of rights of education in Sabah and Sarawak in IGC report. You cannot just say, we have not enough quota, every something like that. You must be very specific. It was written in IGC report. So what I can summarize here is that some of the Malayan Education Act cannot be applied to Sabah and Sarawak. The policy and administration of education in Sabah and Sarawak must based on the policy and administration policy of Sabah and Sarawak itself, not by federal government. So we should federal law should not provide for financial aid of Muslim institution unless state government agree. And then number 3, federal constitution should secure. This is very important one. Actually, this is what you must ask. This social welfare purpose. You know when the education institution in Federation of Malaya, Muslim institution, Muslim religious school education in Federation of Malaya, they get a lot of money, right? But when they get that money, Sabah and Sarawak, what do we get? What we get is we must have a proportionate amount for social welfare purpose for Sabah and Sarawak. So any money that was used by federal government for religious school in Federation of Malaya, we must have a proportional amount for social welfare purpose here for Sabah and Sarawak. As for that money, this is not about religious issue. Always follow the money. They are always going for money. No, they use race and religious issue just politic. Actually, look where the money goes. And then we have a lot of stuff actually in IGC report. English should continue in Sabah and Sarawak. Indigenous people, state provision for special position of the indigenous people for native of Sabah and Sarawak. The provision for special position of native should continue in education. And when there is a higher education facility was being proposed in the budget, you look at the budget, annual budget, higher education facility. So consideration, special consideration, not just consideration, special consideration and desirability of it, the institution should be located in the Borneo state. There's a lot of rights of Sabah and Sarawak in IGC report. You can find it's a lot of it actually. So try to point out which right do you want and fight for it. Ask your adun to fight for it. Now we back into the share screen. NGO, StreamYard, okay, PowerPoint. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you for watching. Now I just tell you about the how to. This is new information. Just I have actually I have written a lot of this stuff how to amend Article 1 of Federal Constitution, but nobody listen. It's not that nobody listen. When I write it, maybe people cannot understand what I have write and what I have emphasized. So I make a video here so that people can understand how to amend Article 1 of Federal Constitution to back it into original. You use paragraph 30, clause 2 of the IGC report, yeah, by using special constitutional arrangement. So if you still don't understand, I don't know, what is your problem? I think it's been more than 1 hour, more than I expected. So I think that's all for tonight. And I hope you can rewatch this video and share it with your friend so that everybody can understand and can understand Malaysia given 1963 and use the right terms for everything. Use the right terms so that nobody will get confused. Okay, that's all. Thank you for watching. Good night. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.